I think Nigerians were actually exchanging poverty, geographical poverty. You left Shomolu here and then went to Shomolu in England, then went to Shomolu in Canada and things like that. You get me now? So you have done that journey. What are your experiences?
I would disagree from the perspective that the poverty in Nigeria is not the same kind of poverty you see anywhere else in the world. There are two ways you can go abroad, or Japa in a sense. You either go, we know our kids are not coming back. Our kids are not coming back. Let me tell you that for free right now. And any guy that builds a house in the village and is expecting his kid to come back and inherit it is wasting his time. I tell you that for free. They do not identify. Japa is not a sickness and it's not a negative. The Indians, they've been Japa for what, 200 years or 300 years. Japa is should be a
positive, yeah.
It's an extremely positive thing. There's so many policies. The Central Bank of Nigeria and all these quangos in Nigeria are doing almost everybody that we see in the office in England, in Canada. First we assume they're black. Then all of a sudden the guy says coffee. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you're Ghanaian? Well, we're still brothers. But once we see ourselves as Niger, we have these people who say, Afa, the brotherhood just starts almost immediately.
So what's your take on the cultural diffusion? For example, sexual preferences, inability to maintain cohesion in relationships between young people and their parents and all of that?
Well,
okay, so good evening once again. My name is Joseph Edgar. We're supposed to be on holiday or something, and they pulled me to go and talk to my brother.
Yes, sir.
I don't forget his name again.
Temidayo
Adekanye. Okay, good. So let me tell you guys something very quickly about the Adekanye name. So I'd always want to be a banker when I first came to Nigeria. When I first came to Lagos, I always want to be a banker, and that name was all up there. You get everybody to be like Mr. Adekanye, Commerce Bank and all of that. So I used to go to the office in the hotel. I just stare at the building. I want to be a banker. Do you understand? And then stuff happened, stuff that they just in Nigeria happened. Nigeria started happening very early. Not in 99, Nigeria started happening. Nigeria happened, And then early this year, I now met Tosh. And because Tosh is now difficult, so I couldn't link it. And then one day I linked it. That Tosh is now Adekanye. And now I'm sitting down with Dayo Adekanye.
Yes, sir.
How was it be like? Let me quickly introduce who Mr. Adekanye was first, so that the audience can know. So just take Tony Nimelu now, take Jim Ovia now, take Agboje Imokede now, put all three of them together, mold them, and bring one man out. That was this person. You get a huge titan in the banking industry. Was a teacher. He was huge. So how was it growing up with that man?
How was it going on?
Growing up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything you said right now is not something we were really familiar with in a sense. So from the perspective that we were living in the situation and we saw how people reacted, but we're not really like, oh my God, my dad is a banker, he's a great author, he's a great this. I mean, if you gave you one of his books and say, here's your copy, you probably just fling it somewhere. So, but he was an interesting man from the perspective that we watched the way he navigated people from, we knew he was a very kind-hearted person because he tried to instill those values in us to always ensure that we considered everybody around us. So when they are cooking, for example, in the house, everybody was covered. Security guys were covered, the gardener was covered, all the helps were covered, all the drivers were covered, everybody was covered. So it was like a big pot of stew. Aside from that, rarely would you see two different pots from that perspective. So we ate what everybody ate in the house. So we ate what the security guy was eating and what the cook was eating in that sense. So we took those values of kindness, education and all that were probably the primary stuff we took from him.
Brilliant.
Nothing else.
Okay, let's quickly run away from that. And then come to why we're here. Okay, so I've been very passionate about this Japa thing, So I wrote an article 3 weeks ago and I got pilloried. So basically, I titled it the poverty of the diaspora, poverty of the diaspora. And what I was saying basically was that I think Nigerians were actually exchanging poverty, geographical poverty. So you left Shomolu here and then went to Shomolu in England, then went to Shomolu in Canada and things like that. Do you get me now? So you have done that journey. You've gone, you've come, you've gone. Do you get me now?
Yes.
So what are your experiences?
Well, I mean,
okay, first let's start with why did you even go in the first? I heard you went at 19.
Probably slightly
The first time.
Probably slightly over 19. But the situation then was that all the universities were in a chaotic state. A lot of them were closing for maybe a year, 2 years in some cases.
You were in the 60s, have you?
No, 60s. But why now? No, not in the 60s. This was in the 90s.
Okay.
So a lot of people started checking out because a 3-year or 4-year course became a 6-7-year course very, very easily. So I left when I was going into my year 3, which was fantastic timing because a lot of people left in that period. So that's the reason why I went. I went on a plane. I didn't go through the Sahara or
Obviously.
on a boat or something like that. So which was pretty interesting.
So what was the experience like?
What, leaving?
No, when you got there.
When I got there, I mean, the experience was from many perspectives. You see, there are 2 ways you can go abroad or Japa in a sense. You either go in a nice way or you go like a hustler trying to just cross over. I mean, I've heard of people going through Estonia, for example, when they tell the story of
Which way?
Estonia.
Oh.
So maybe they found their way somehow, they got to Estonia, and then somehow managed to cross into the UK, maybe through France or Cali or something like that, right? So the experience was very different. I mean, the first thing I noticed, because I literally got to England, I believe it was September 7th or something like that, and lectures had started maybe the week before. So I literally got in, and I jumped into the house and I said, I'm going to school. And my dad says, forward. I said, class are starting like 9. I said, go and take a shower first. That's how fast I hit the ground running. So it was completely different. The education there is completely different from what you get here. So the way we answer questions, the way we respond to lecturers, the way we respond in classes, the way we interact with all the facility or faculty members and all that is completely and utterly different. I mean, in Nigeria, I probably didn't even know most of my lecturers. I didn't know their secretaries. I didn't know anybody. I mean, I literally just whizzed through it. When somewhere like the UK or any other developed country, you know almost all of them because you have to interact with them very deeply on a personal level, if possible, from the perspective that they want to know what your problems are. You have to give reasons for your responses in some cases, and they want to understand also where you're coming from. Okay. So
can we describe that as the first wave?
That was probably one of the first waves of people.
Okay, so how do you see the second wave now?
I think there's been a series of movements, but right now is probably at the highest point. So everybody is just heading to a certain degree in one direction. Of course, you hear doctors or a few people say they're coming back and all that kind of stuff. But they don't tell you when they run back again. So the wave right now is very serious from the perspective that it's not even just university now. People are leaving from secondary school if possible. They want to just get out from a very early age. I mean, back in the days, they used to say, oh, don't let the kid out until it was maybe at least 19, 20 or something like that. Now, these guys are sending their kids abroad from even 11, 12. Once they finish primary school, they just want to get them out to secondary school in London or wherever it is. So.
Okay, so take yourself out of the mix now, and then put yourself in the shoes of the average Nigerian that didn't have your circumstances, that has done the second wave. How's life like there for that person?
So it depends. It depends on what you're hoping to achieve. I think you must know yourself first before anything else. Most people, I don't think they know themselves. They're expecting to get to London and the road is paved with cash and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, back to your article on switching poverty between Nigeria. I would disagree from the perspective that the poverty in Nigeria is not the same kind of poverty you see anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
You have to remember that abroad there are food banks, there are charity organizations, there are Christian organizations, there are Islamic organizations. There are so many organizations that will try to buffer some of the issues you have. They'll even buffer from perspective of maybe feeding and all that kind of stuff. You may not be as wealthy, but you can live a better level of poverty, if you put it that way. So it's completely different.
So why is crime rate going up amongst
the crime rate? Amongst who?
Amongst you guys that have gone there.
Again, like I said, know yourself. So you have a lot of fraudsters in a sense that maybe they're trying so hard to create their own community or what should I call it, their own I didn't want to use the word mafia, so in a sense, or group or whatever it is. And they actually go and misrepresent us in most forms. So I think you had a case of the GC, what the Gulf countries, And right now, because I met a few Nigerians even in Qatar, in Dubai and the rest, and they had nothing good to say.
Yeah.
They're struggling now with jobs, with accommodation. It's as if I believe they had a silent agreement.
So we want to agree that maybe it's the worst of us that are running away.
The what? The worst of us? No, I disagree. I disagree. You see, it only takes a few bad apples. It just takes a few people. You can have, maybe in the midst of 100 people, it's just about maybe 2 or 3 of them that are really messing up stuff, but they spoil the remaining 97 or 90.
Okay, so what's your take on the cultural diffusion that you guys have faced with now? Do you understand? So, for example, sexual preferences, inability to maintain cohesion in relationships between young people and their parents and all of that?
Well, again, I think it comes down to the way you live. So, if your family sends you overseas, they're paying for your school fees, they're paying for your accommodation, they give you some kind of pocket money. It's different from the guys that had to hustle to get there to start off with. The assumption is if you were sponsored or your parents are taking care of the bill, it's more, it's easier for you to integrate and mix more because you don't have the problems that is associated or that are associated with if you're hustling.
Yeah.
So as relates to preferences and all that, it depends on how much food you have in your stomach. If you're hungry, you're willing to do almost anything. So I mean, the kind of people that I mingled with, we're very easy in integrating to the societies we're in. So you can see me at a party, I'll be the only black person, for example. It doesn't mean I'm trying to sell out. It just means I'm comfortable in my own skin. I don't see anybody better than myself. You see me in the office, I can be the only singular person on the floor of maybe 50 or 100 people. And I mean, it's a problem for me from perspective of representation. But it doesn't mean I can survive in that environment. I will survive and I'll try because Nigeria now, they will teach you whatever kind of stuff. So it's a bit from that perspective. Now, if you put someone that's hustled, he's gone through the Mediterranean, crossed the sea, and it's not maybe as well oiled, he might be intimidated in some of those scenarios. And usually when someone is slightly not confident in their abilities, you can almost spot it that this guy probably really hustled to get here because you can see the fear is almost palpable in the air when you see those kind of things. But as relates to Niger people, the beauty that I've seen across was that whenever you see a Niger guy in the office, in fact, most of the black people, we always assume every black person is Niger in the office.
Wow.
That's one thing you have to remember. Almost everybody that we see in the office, in England, in Canada, first we assume they're black. Then all of a sudden the guy says Kofi, and I'm like, oh, okay, so you're Ghanaian? Well, we're still brothers. But once we see ourselves as Niger, we have these people who say, Afa. You understand? So the brotherhood just starts almost immediately, just by the mere fact that we know where we're coming from.
But this is a contradiction there.
A contradiction.
So you're running away, and then you still don't want to leave the culture.
No, but you have to remember that every culture builds. They almost replicate their culture to a certain degree wherever they are. So Nigerians replicate their culture wherever they are. In Canada, you see the Nigerian community, they will do almost everything you do here, everything you celebrate, every attire, where every food you eat, everything you do. From a Niger perspective, they do the same thing in Canada or in the UK or even in Ukraine or Estonia or something like that. So it's your decision to decide if you want to integrate completely into those environments or you want to just have a bit of it and more on the Western side. So but you find your balance. You find.
So do you say third race coming up?
What's the third race?
Third race. So people who are not Nigerian, I mean, but they're not British.
In what sense, though?
In every sense, culturally, outlook, sexually. So I'm seeing young children who have gone to school there. Do you get? They're not totally British. Let's use Britain for example, and then but they're totally disconnected from Nigeria.
Oh, there are a lot of people that are completely disconnected from Nigeria. There are people that left in their 20s or even early teens that are completely disconnected from Nigeria. They don't want to even step in Murtala Mohammed if you pay them to. They completely hate it in a sense. But as it relates to children, I think what I have seen is once a kid is born abroad in a sense, to a very high degree, they represent the society they live in. My kids, for example, I try to say, if you're Niger, you're British, you're this, you're that. But truly, I look at them and I know I don't see anything Nigerian in them. One of my sons likes eba. And if you give him a goosey, we eat it. If you give him grilled chicken, they call it papa chicken, kind of stuff. So, but that may be the limitation. For example, he's not going to ask for buba or anything like that. Or he's not going to say too often, when I'm going to Nigeria or something like that. Or it doesn't seek Nigerian friends.
Are you comfortable with that as a Nigerian?
I don't have a choice.
How do you mean?
Number one, you have to remember they spend most of their time in school anyway. So it's what they teach them in school. I mean, you only spend weekends and so little time with them that, yes, you try to instill values in them, but they're always in school and it's their friends and the crowd they mingle with. At this point, knowing what I know now, I'm very comfortable with it, actually.
Serious?
Because I've got to the point where there was a period ago where they'll say, your son is rude, send him to Lagos for 1 year, send him to a school, put him in school for 1 year, whether it's the most expensive school or whatever it is. And by the time he comes back, he will know the values, he will know this. I think that's BS at this point.
Yeah.
That's completely, if you send your kid to a school here, you're finished.
Are you serious?
He'll probably come back.
Are you sure you're not going to run into Davido's turbulence? That's the major
well, I don't have the credibility.
What's your take in that? What's your take on that?
What,
Davido's statement?
No, the guy said what he feels. He said, it's a free country. You're allowed to say what you feel. It doesn't mean it's...
Do you agree with that or don't you agree with that?
Well, I think, okay, so what I've realized quite a number of times in my whole travels, there was a period I said, I'm never going to live in the UK again. I went back. There was a period I said, I'm never coming to Nigeria again. I came back. There was a period I said, I'm never going to Canada again. There's a possibility I might go back. You understand what I'm saying? So after a while, do you know what I stopped doing? I stopped saying, never again.
Wow.
Because whatever the situation is, whatever you have to do with at that particular point in time, there's no way in hell you can know what's going to happen tomorrow. No way. You can be Nostradamus, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So you have to adapt to the situation you find yourself at any point in time. So what's the question again? I think I was driving, but...
Yeah, I forgot the question too.
Okay.
So let's have another question.
Yeah, let's go to another question.
I beg you. So what's your take on the economy? This is our economy.
Nigeria
what's your background first?
My background? Okay, so when I finished university...
Which university did you go to?
I went to University of East London.
No, before you left.
Oh, before I left. Unilag. I was in Unilag.
Unilag?
I was in Unilag.
Did you go to Lagoon Front?
Not really. I was in Unilag, but I was still in Unilag, if you understand what I mean.
Okay.
You know?
It didn't pass through.
We were more... I mean... I don't want to confess too much before I get myself into trouble. But Unilag to me was just a time. I mean, that was in that era, studying was not the thing. was just like you're just passing through university, just to just get the certificate and move on, kind of stuff. So most of us, we used to hang. It was what's that place? Lagoon? Was it library? In the library downstairs where they had the cafe.
Yeah.
I don't remember what they used to call it now.
No, neither.
Yeah.
But then law school.
Just
law department.
below the library.
Yeah.
There was a cafe there. That was my hanging joint back in the days. Or outside school. I was hardly in school kind of stuff, unfortunately. So, yes. So, after that, then I went to East London, business economics, graduate. I had to reorientate myself very quickly. So, within a couple of semesters, I had to start understanding it from the English perspective because, my goodness, they taught me nonsense in Nigeria, complete. Sorry, I mean, then from there, went to...
Who taught you nonsense?
Well, I mean, it was just the educational system. I literally...
I'm going to throw you tomatoes out.
I literally started university again, in a sense. Even though I transferred, I literally started university again. Now, from there to Birkbeck College, did a postgraduate diploma in applied economics. That was tough because I was working as well while doing that program. So I suffered, man. That was when I realized I was growing up. At this point, there was no pocket money. There was no, what do you need? Let me pay your school fees. I had to pay for all this stuff myself at this point. So you grow up very fast. Then from there, I went to London School of Economics. I did a master's in information systems. That's management information systems in London School of Economics. Which was probably the best time of my life. Why? I'd been working for about 3 years at this point, and I'd made some money, and I hadn't taken any holidays. Like literally, I remember I had this boss. The guy looks at me and he goes, they used to call me Ade then because it was easier for them to pronounce. So the guy goes, Ade, take 2 days off, don't worry, I'll pay you, kind of stuff. I never used to take time off. So I'm in LSE. I had more money than most of the students. I'm doing a master's program 1 year. I went crazy, literally. I had the best time of my life when I was in School of Economics.
Let's go into details so you know you're in trouble about the crazy part of it.
You can go into details, doesn't matter. I won't tell you anything that will implicate me. So,
but let's talk about the economy. How do you see Nigerian economy right now?
Right now?
GDP has gone up by 3.7%. GDP.
What, the stock?
No, gross domestic product, GDP.
GDP.
Yeah,
I thought you said GTP.
Sorry.
As in Guaranteed Trust Bank.
Yeah,
okay.
No. So it's gone up by 3.7%.
I guess.
But inflation is still over 33%.
I did a degree in business economics, right? So for me, and if I remember going back to all those, yes, we did analysis, we did econometrics, we did microeconomics, macro, and developing country economics and all that kind of stuff. But there's no need for all these numbers if it doesn't translate to the average Joe on the street. You can actually see the average Joe on the street sweating. So, yeah, you can tell me the GDP has gone up by 3%. What does it matter if the average Joe cannot buy a meal, So, start, and, in economics sometimes, most of our stats, there's this thing we call assumptions. We just make assumptions. Assuming so is this. We do forecasting. Sometimes economists can know what the conclusion is and try and work their numbers to that conclusion. That's by removing factors within the analysis or the calculating process. So if I see that the cost of Gary has shot up so much due to inflation and is going to affect my price index, I'll remove that particular factor, which will affect the calculation. So, I can create any numbers you want. Just tell me what you need. I'll probably go back to my textbooks and get them out. So like I'm saying, for me, because I truly care about people and I see the hunger on the streets, I don't know, man.
So what would you do differently if you had the opportunity? So
what I do differently?
You're in the Minister of Finance.
This guy, you want to, small guy like you, like, I think, first, I have to know what the number is, the stats and all that kind of stuff. You understand? There's no need saying what you can do when you don't know what these guys are saying. Right? So you have to see what they're saying. But there's so many other things that can add to what they're doing that can actually have a direct impact, whether it's employment, employability, maybe not short term, but maybe medium or long term strategies that can actually change or impact people's lives. You understand? You have to have the short term strategies, medium and long-term strategies. Right now, whatever they're doing, maybe might impact the long term, but will definitely not have any impact on the
In the
short
short
term.
term, yeah.
You understand? So I mean, there's just nothing going on when petrol is moving at the rate is going, and even the middle class is suffering. I'm looking at them
There's no middle class
suffering.
again.
You know, I mean, I was driving to the studio and the road was empty, and I'm thinking, well, I mean, this is great. I mean, I can get here within 10 minutes, but still, I'm like, it's because people are suffering from petrol that the streets are slightly empty. So I don't know, there's a lot of stuff they can do that can definitely do.
Okay, so during the Obasanjo's tenure, a lot of people came back. So you don't see that happening again now?
Now? It might be possible, but I think a lot of factors have changed. A lot of things have changed. I remember during OBJ's time, I don't think so.
You don't think anyone will come back?
I don't
want
think
to come back?
It's not that they don't want to come back. Everybody wants to come back to a certain degree. We all want to have this best of both worlds kind of stuff. We know our kids are not coming back. Our kids are not coming back. Let me tell you that for free right now.
I suspect that.
I mean, any guy that builds a house in the village and is expecting his kid to come back and inherit it is wasting his time. I tell you that for free. Our kids are not coming back.
Yeah.
Those guys are British, they're American, they're Australians, and there's no way in hell. They're not even coming back to Lagos if possible. You understand? They do not identify with all the stuff that we keep talking about here. So, but for us, we still feel this affinity to actually put something in. But we've reached a point, I mean, I will speak very frankly on this, that the system, the people are saying, we don't want you. They're saying they don't want us to come back, you know, because we're coming back highly educated, we're coming back soft because we care about people, we're coming back with governors, we're coming back with all these things we've learned, and they're thinking, how is that going to add to my bottom line from the perspective that it's a wild, wild west here, man. You know, you're not coming back with guns blazing, ready to shoot down.
So basically, when you came back, your experience was not...
No, it was completely... I mean, when I came back... I came back in 2008, right? I was here 2008, 2009, till about 2010 or so, thereabout, right? Actually, the funny thing is, one of the reasons why I came back was because I was getting old and I said, I'm coming back to find a wife.
Oh.
Right? Now, actually, this is a good story. So I came back and I realized that within a very short time, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? As in, I left Canada, I came back to Nigeria to find a wife. And I'm like, oh boy. Be like, say, I'll go back and go and find a wife in Canada because the stuff I was looking for was not on ground that I could actually... The idea was, okay, you've come back. You better have a big box with cash in it. Or what did you bring back kind of stuff. It wasn't about who you were. It was about what you can
offer,
what you can offer.
Materially.
And you know, after a while, when you live abroad, you believe in all the romance and all the movies and all that stuff. That's why I say we'll come back soft. So I was in that movie mode. That I'll find some delectable bride at a wedding and we'll look at each other before you know it, we'll get married, that kind of stuff. Very quickly, that got wiped out of my memory. So I adapted to the situation I found myself. But making that move, you know, I always believe that every time you make a move, it might be the wrong move, but it might lead you to the right place, if you get my meaning. So that move probably led me to the right place, and I got married in 2009.
Where?
In London, to someone I had known from way back in 2000. So I went back to, you know, the London I said I'm never going back to. I went back there and I got married there and I started living there again.
Brilliant.
So that's why I said I'd never say never. Never say I'm never going back that way.
So what values would you say that you share with your dad?
What values? I think religion is one. From the perspective that it was a very, very deeply spiritual person. He navigated the world looking for his place, and he found it in Islam eventually, as in he chose to be there, not that
He wasn't born Muslim.
he was born Muslim. But
Okay.
you have to, I think just we have to get to a point in Nigeria where you choose. And you can be born into something, but you must choose eventually. At some point, you will have to choose. So if you choose to be in there, it's better than if you're born into it, I think, because it's your choice to stay in. So his compassion for people, he had so much compassion. I mean, I've been in so many places, someone will just look at me and say, which Adekanye are you? You know, are you the Ondo one or the Kwara one? I say, I'm the Kwara one. And my goodness.
We guys are from Kwara.
Yeah, we're from Kwara. So there's another set of Adekanye in Ondo. So, and most of them, especially bankers, they'll feel like, oh my God, like they've just met the man kind of stuff. And I'm looking at them like, I remember one guy almost brought me to tears at a wedding because apparently my dad was his lecturer in Ibadan. Because my dad did some lecturing as well, part-time. So when he finished, as part of his lecture program, he invited some of his students to come and work with him. So that's how the guy got his break in banking. So when the guy saw me at this wedding, I'm serious, I was almost in tears. The way the man was greeting me and blah, 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 oh my God, this. I said, okay. So compassion for people, I think that's the main one. The guy made a lot of mistakes. My own man made a lot of mistakes. But we forgave him for some of them. We moved on, and he was very generous, extremely generous. He had the Islamic school in hometown, for example.
Where's your hometown?
Offa.
Offa.
Yeah, so he had
There's one very popular school in that Offa.
No, that's
this way.
This way college, exactly. So
I used to have a girlfriend in that school.
Yeah, big
No,
one.
no, that went to that school. No, before they were catching for
underage, yes. So at this so there was
Wait, sorry to continue my there. Let me take you back a little bit there. Because this is everything. So we've had some very prominent Nigerians who have sent their children abroad and they've come back. They left Nigeria as men, they came back as women. You get some people left Nigeria as heterosexual, they came back as gay. You get, so what's your own take in all of this? Because we tried to have this conversation earlier on, because it's worrisome.
I don't think the proportion you're in that aspect is as alarming as you might. I mean, okay, so you see one or two examples, maybe one person in your group of friends and you go into panic mode or some kind of shock kind of stuff. I don't think it's a trend in a sense. To a certain degree, I mean, it's not something that I've studied, but I've seen. I think some say they were born into that. Some are pulled into it by their group or environmental factors. Some are forced into it. So, I mean, that's three categories. Those that were born into it, those that were pulled into it by environmental factors, those that were forced into it, or maybe those that haven't chosen it. That's a fourth category. So it's a whole gambit. It's not something that worries or that I think about on a day-to-day basis. I don't think anything is something we should think about. It's a free world. The main thing, as it relates to that particular topic, my take, right? My take, and this is just from my own navigation of the world. I don't really give. Can I swear?
Go ahead.
I don't really give a fuck what you do in your bedroom.
They will edit it.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck what you do in your bedroom. Do whatever you want to do in your bedroom. That's your business. Whatever it is, that's your effing
But it's not happening in the bedroom anymore. It's happening everywhere, on TV, on radio, everywhere.
So, well, I mean, to get it on radio, you have to tune in.
Yeah.
So tune out. To get it on TV, you have to switch on the TV. So switch off. Do you basically. Don't. So far, I'm not forced. Do whatever makes you happy. That's your business. That's my take, because it's a bit liberal, but I think to me, that's the equilibrium, that's the optimum. I don't want to know what you do in your bedroom, and I don't want to.
Don't ask, don't tell.
No, it's not even, yeah.
So I begin to now.
I'm not even interested. You know, I'm not interested. Insofar as you don't affect me, don't try to change me. Don't try to force me to do something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Then it is your business what you do. Don't affect my own enjoyment of life. Then hey, whatever it is goes, man. You know?
Okay, so as a wrap up now, let's talk about your second missionary journey, if I may call it that.
Your second what?
Your second missionary journey, if I may call it that.
Missionary journey.
So what pushed you back the second time? What brought you back the second time?
What brought me back the second time?
Because first time you came to look for a wife, you didn't see wife. So you went back, you saw wife.
No,
So
I didn't go back actually.
When you come back with a second wife or something?
No, I was correct. You know, I've studied, I've looked at life. I'm a very observant person. I try to look at everything from so many perspectives. I try to even analyze myself and question myself and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't like I was going back. I didn't go back to find my wife. She was there, and at some point it became, okay, let's get married, kind of stuff that this will work, and I pursued it in a sense. So my second coming, what do you want to know about my second coming again?
So what pushed you?
Okay.
What pushed you and what drove you back?
You see, it's impossible to cover so much in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But at some point, because when I started in the city of London, for example, which was a hustle, I used to go around with a CV to every agency saying, oh, I'm a graduate, I have experience in this, I can do this, even if I didn't really have that much experience in whatever I was doing. And eventually I got a job in Midland Security Services, which is now HSBC.
Oh, brilliant.
So I used to have one suit, or I bought one suit. I worked in Debenhams for 3 months. I bought a suit, I bought a pair of shoes, I bought maybe 2 pairs of socks, I can't remember. I remember buying, there's a pack, Marks and Spencer pack of shirts. There were 3 shirts for £7 or something, and was it 2 ties for £5. So I wore those and went around in the city of London. We didn't have the internet to go and, no, there was no Google search. There was no, this is 1996. You couldn't look for a job online, kind of stuff. I went from agency to agency looking for a job. Eventually I got a temp job, and that's where I started from. £8 an hour. Now that suit, I wore it for a whole year. One suit for a whole year. Some weekends I dry cleaned it. The shirts always washed, always pressed, tie, always looking sharp, shoe always polished. Now I used to tell my people that used to work with me in my former company, I said at some point the shoes had a hole under, and when it rained, water was seeping from the under. But when you looked at the shoe from the top, it would be shining. But underneath, there was water in my socks. I used to go pop. You know when water is in your shoe, you feeling it like that. But when you looked at the top, it was always sparkling clean. So what brought me back? So so at some point you go through. Well, we were the pioneers to a certain degree. I mean, there were other people that came before us. But at the point that we came, when you say black guy in the city of London, you say, what's up? You know, I met Ghanaians, people from other nationalities in the city of London, but we're very, very few. We're so few that we used to say hi to each other. That's how few we were, because we knew what it took to get to where we are. We knew the hustle that it took to get where we are, 1. 2, technology was the one that started opening up the space for minorities. It started with the Indians because they needed people with IT background to do stuff, and they didn't have the capacity by any dimension. So labor was a problem, skill and all that kind of stuff. So I remember one guy saying, I'm on £8 an hour. One guy goes to me, stick with you, you'll be on £50 an hour very soon. And I looked at this guy, I thought the guy was crazy. I thought he had lost his mind. I was like, what's wrong with this guy? Why is he trying to piss me off in a sense? Like, what do you mean I'll be on 50? I mean, I'm on 80. I tell me I'll be on 50 very soon. I'm looking at the guy like, this guy was crazy. Anyhow, within, let me see, 96, 97, 98. Yeah, I was on about £50 an hour by 98, 99.
That's 2 years from then.
That's about 2-3 years from then. So, I mean, I was like, oh my God, this guy wasn't messing around kind of stuff. Because you had the Y2K bug. That was year 2000 millennium bug. At this point, I'm in IT now because I was migrating from the business side into the IT side. So, either way, at some point, you go in your career within the environment, there might be a glass ceiling depending on what your industry is. It's industry specific. It's not all around. So you might hit a brick wall. Yes, a lot of people, well, not a lot, but a percentage of people break the glass ceiling and says, hey, brother, man, you're not really one of us. You can't really cross this line, kind of stuff. Maybe, okay, I don't know what the grade in here, let's say senior manager, okay, from here, you can't really cross into the... So at some point, you have to ask yourself some of those questions, like, what do you want to do? And I was always doing consulting work, so which was great. They paid you a lot of money to come in for a period of time, hit the ground running because you have a certain level of intelligence and skill, do the job and get out. So, I mean, the second coming was more for a stable senior level position in an organization, and probably one of the few jobs I've taken that was permanent, because I never committed to anybody, because at some point while traveling, it was a case of it was easier to be a consultant than be a permanent guy. Because with a permanent guy, there are certain rules and regulations that you have to follow that guides you in your career. But short of you being an entrepreneur, the next best was to be a consultant.
So how did all of this now push you back?
To Nigeria. Yeah, so like I was saying, coming to Nigeria, you had all the fintech thing going on. We're doing a lot of growth in the fintech industry in Nigeria. There was an opportunity to also come back and explore that possibility. But coming back and trying to understand what's going on within the arena, I realized, okay, maybe I don't want to use any negative distance, but maybe all is not as it's painted out to be.
So maybe before it was a value system?
No, I don't think it's a value system in that sense. I think we have a lot of problems, especially things around infrastructure, for example. I mean, how do you sell technology to a nation that is still... I mean, you should see your driver's phone. Look around you and see the phones that people are still using. They're still using phones that are worse than Nokia, 3310. And I'm like, how can you be using this phone in this day and age? Places like India, China, and the rest, they actually have programs to ensure that everybody has a modern phone. Because if your customers or your potential customers don't have those modern phones, how can they even buy your product?
Yes.
You understand? How can someone do a bank transfer with a phone that is worse than not 99 or what they call it back in the days? They can't do a bank transfer, so those guys are cut off. So you said programs. Those are some of the programs, subsidized phones for people, so that you increase the penetration of technology across the industry, because it increases their educational standing as well. They can now Google. Your driver can now Google, whether in Yoruba. I'm sure they can be able to type in Yoruba and say, translate it to me and all that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of programs that need to happen. So, I mean, I was coming to add to all this technology stuff, and like I said, not being negative to a certain degree, but it's smokes and mirror, I call it.
Explain.
As in, what you see is not necessarily what is there. It's a bit of sleight of hand, hey, magic.
But we're attracting a lot of funding.
That's what you think. Quite a number of times, right? The question I ask is, let's scale that to the funding that they're getting in India, for example, or let's scale it to the funding that they're getting even in maybe Ghana or Cameroon or even closer to home or South Africa or something. You find out that what you consider a lot of funding is actually less than 10% of what they're investing in.
Why do you think it's so?
Like I said, there's a few things that need to get fixed. As infrastructure being one of them, extremely key. But also the type of products we're bringing to the market. You understand what I'm saying? I've had people that want to create apps for the medical industry. And I'm like, who is going to use it? You understand? You're creating an app for people to contact the hospital to get their files and all. I'm like, you get my point. Everybody's in payments to start off with. Eventually they're going to run into problems because they have to either consolidate some of those payment platforms because there are too many choices. And sometimes too many choices breeds its own problems.
True.
As you know, the level of fraud as well is shooting up
yeah.
like crazy. And everybody just turns a blind eye. Again, the smokes and mirror part of it. Nobody really wants to face the problem, but everybody wants to be the expert in it. And that's another thing I realized. Everybody's an expert in something. If I speak to someone, everybody's an expert. Every time I open the papers, there's always a seminar, and this guy's an expert in it. I'm like, really? Help me out here, you understand? And everybody wants to draw stats from everywhere, and they say, these are stats. So one guy will bring a stats about something. Another guy will bring a different stats about the same thing, but it's completely different. And I'm like, so who am I to believe, you or them?
You,
yeah. So, so there's so many things that need to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so lastly, so if your son walked up to you and said, Dad, I'm thinking of going back to Nigeria, I always say it to him.
My son.
Last final thing. Yeah.
My son.
Yeah.
That's practically impossible.
No, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
What advice will you give him? Okay, forget about your son. And what's his name? Walks up to you and says, David, walks up to you and says, I want to go back to Nigeria. I was born in the UK. I want to go back to Nigeria to go and contribute, to go and give back. What will you say to him?
Okay, so that's a wonderful question, actually, because over the years, again, I've analyzed that question so many times. I remember back maybe 10 years ago, if you had to say it, I used to be so emphatic. I would either say, go, or I'll say, don't go. I'll be like, are you crazy? Are you going where? You must be crazy. I've been there, you don't want to go. Or I'll say, Charlie, there's money to be made in that town. If you know what you're doing, you just put this here, make sure you stick within the regulation, make sure you... I did microfinance bank at some point in Nigeria. I actually had a microfinance bank with my business partner. You understand? We're two founders. We started a microfinance bank. The rules were so stringent. I looked at the rules and I was like, wow, you can't really do much with this stuff. With the way the microfinance license was issued. This was 2008, 2009. So technically I was the MDC of a microfinance bank, right? Then the financial crisis hit at some point. So we abandoned it because the environment, because we're using IMFB. I don't know if you remember IMFB, Integrated Microfinance Bank, and a few other microfinance banks.
Oh yeah, I know IMFB.
And Blue.
There's that one big office in Sabo.
Exactly. So they were the benchmark for our microfinance bank.
Yes.
And when we realized that they went bust due to inconsistent numbers and all that kind of stuff, we're like, oh my goodness, our benchmarks, that means all our assumptions are void.
Oh yeah.
So we knew we were in trouble already, kind of stuff. Because this was pre-launch and all that kind of stuff, right? So, where was I going? I was emphatic about whether you should come on. So now, I decided at some point that I'll never tell anybody emphatically, don't go or
stay.
Go.
So
I'll say just keep your eyes open. If you decide to go, be careful. Watch the minefield. The mindset is completely different here. The governance level is completely different here. The trust level is completely different here. The daily interaction is completely different here. The level of skill is completely different here. The kind of things you can do, the limitations and the law and the rule of law and all those kind of stuff are completely different here. It's not the same as here. If you get into trouble in this place, you're not going to have the law to back you up in a sense. I mean, if you try me in London, if you just rub me the wrong way, I can call the cops on you, right? And there's a rule or rule of law in a sense, and whether black or white, there's still a level that they want to maintain. So yes, there's racism and all that kind of stuff, but trust me, there's still levels that clearly they'll say, okay, no, this doesn't make sense, kind of stuff. So, but here, man, it's the case of the rich against the poor. You're on your own, man.
So I was speaking to Mr. Adekanye. I don't forget his name again. No.
How can you forget my name again?
You don't forget many things on this talk now. You don't forget like 3 times. So me, I can forget your. But there was the complete who forget parts.
Your questions are like going like this. So, and the thing is, you know why I was forgetting so much? There's so much.
Yeah,
we've tried to put. So there's so much
in a small.
There's so much. But if I had to conclude or wrap up from my distance, I'll say, look, do you
wrap up finally? You don't wrap up 6 times now.
I don't wrap up system.
Fine,
They do
that's
like
fine.
you now. No be so you dey talk. No be so you said they talk like that, Jerry. So I think do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
If you want to, in the sense that you want to leave Nigeria, Japa is not a sickness and it's not a negative. The Indians, they've been Japan for what, 200 years or 300 years, and they've grown across the world. They've made tons of money. They sent it back home. I mean, I was in Mumbai maybe a year ago or something, and I was flabbergasted. I was shocked. I was like, oh my goodness, when will Nigeria even get half to where these guys have gotten to? So Japan is should be a positive thing.
Yeah.
It's an extremely positive thing in the sense that people are going to get educated, they're going to get skills, they're going to get
technology transfer,
communication, soft skill, technology transfer, and they're also repatriating money. There's so many policies that the Central Bank of Nigeria and all these quangos in Nigeria are doing relating to the repatriation of funds back home.
Brilliant. Okay, we can stop now before the thing turn to series.
Why not? Let's just I can go on.
Okay, so I've been talking to Dayo.
Yes, so
Dayo Adekanye. But see, there's a part of the story I really want to talk about, but this guy's not ready just yet. But we'll talk about it one day.
Which part is
your dad.
My dad.
That story has to be told. But not today. That story has to be told, you know.
Yeah.
So, guys, we talked about a lot of interesting things. We talked about which command you look at it, left or right. Okay. And we talked about Japa go come. We talked about first missionary journey, second missionary journey. We talked about gay. You know, he say no mind.
I didn't say I no mind though.
Wait, at the close. You're supposed to talk now.
I just say everybody do you. I'm not interested.
Everybody do you.
Yeah.
You know? So it was quite interesting. And like I said, you know, you can see that we still need more time to have this engagement. But I think very seriously that your father's story has to be told. And it has to be told right.
Yes,
you know, you guys owe him that. You guys owe him that. Either in a book form or in a documentary or something. Because he pioneered the kind of banking that we're having right now in terms of new generation banking and all of that. So I think that's to tell the story. So thank you very much. The Duke of Rants. I'm not forgetting to say that your outro, whatever it is, you do it. Thank you. God bless you. Let's go eat our farm.